The first time she pressed me against the wall, it wasn't like that. It was a narrow hallway, and I was carrying a box too wide for the stairs. She came up behind me, balancing a tray of mugs, her voice soft but steady. "Careful, that corner sticks out." I turned too quickly, and for a second, we both froze, my shoulder brushing her apron, the faint scent of coffee and detergent between us. That was the first week I moved in. Her name's Mara, though everyone in the building just calls her the landlady. Mid-40s, maybe older. She runs the place herself, a 3-story apartment building that always smells like toast and old wood. Rent's due on the 1st, but she never asks until the 5th. She pretends it's because she's forgetful. I think she just gives people time. Every morning, she's in the shared kitchen, rinsing mugs, humming under her breath. The same melody, slow, almost absent-minded. I used to think it was from a song she liked, but sometimes she hums without sound, just breath. I notice things like that too much. I'm 23. I work nights at the copy shop across the street and sleep through half the day. My phone buzzes with messages I never open. Friends asking about plans, group chats filled with memes. I don't reply. I tell myself I'll text back after work, after dinner, after something changes. But nothing ever does. Except her. She started leaving my mail on the counter instead of the hallway slot. Said it was easier. I think she just wanted an excuse to talk. "You eat yet?" she asked once, pouring herself tea. I shook my head, said I'd grab something later. Later becomes never, she said, without looking at me. Her hands were small but confident, the kind that know the weight of cups by memory. She wore a silver ring, tarnished around the edges, like it hadn't been taken off in years. That night, I found an extra plate of rice and eggs outside my door. No note, just steam still rising. Sometimes I catch myself listening for her footsteps in the hallway. The shuffle of slippers, the creak near the 3rd step. She always pauses there, as if debating whether to knock. Then the sound fades. She never does. Last Tuesday, she stopped by while I was fixing the washing machine in the basement. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You're good with your hands," she said, smiling. "Just lucky." I answered, though my pulse betrayed me. She nodded, like she knew more than she said. Then, "Rent's due tomorrow. Don't forget." Her tone was light, teasing, but her eyes didn't match it. They lingered too long, tracing the shape of my mouth when I smiled. When she left, she brushed my shoulder. Accidental, maybe. I felt it for the rest of the night. There's a quiet rhythm to the building now. Her kettle whistles, my door clicks, her footsteps echo faintly through the pipes. The whole place hums like it's breathing between us. Tonight, I found an envelope under my door. My name, written in her handwriting, careful but hurried. Inside, no bill, no rent notice. Just a note. "Come upstairs when you can. There's something we should talk about." I stared at it for a long time, tracing the indentation of the pen on the paper. The hallway outside was silent. For a moment, I thought I heard her humming again, soft, close, like she was waiting. I went upstairs the next morning. Not because of the note. I told myself I needed to ask about the broken heater. But the truth was, I'd read her handwriting too many times to pretend it didn't pull me there. Mara's door was open a crack. The smell of toasted bread drifted out. She was sitting by the window, wearing a faded sweatshirt instead of her usual button-down. The room felt softer somehow, sunlight catching on dust in the air. "You got my note," she said without turning. I did. A beat. The kettle hissed behind her. She motioned toward the table. "Tea." I nodded. She poured quietly, both cups steaming. I noticed her hands tremble slightly when she set one in front of me. Not from nerves, I thought, from something else. Weariness, maybe. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. I wasn't either. That made her laugh, short, low. "You always say things like that." "Like what?" "Like you're halfway somewhere else." She stirred her tea slowly. "I used to be like that. Before the divorce." The words sat between us, plain and unadorned. She didn't try to soften it. "I keep thinking," she went on, "if I'd just said what I wanted instead of pretending I didn't, maybe things would have been different. I didn't know what to say. I watched the way the light hit her face, soft lines, tired eyes, still beautiful. I wondered what it felt like to have lived enough to regret it. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "For what?" "I don't know." "For not knowing what to say." She smiled then, not at me, exactly, but toward me. "You don't have to fill every silence, you know." We drank in quiet. The clock ticked, the tea cooled. Outside, someone's radio hummed faintly through the wall. "Do you miss him?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her spoon paused mid-stir. "Sometimes. Mostly I miss the version of me who thought she'd figured things out." She looked up, eyes steady. "What about you? You ever figure anything out yet?" I shook my head. "Not even close." She smiled again, softer this time, almost proud. "Good. Stay that way for a while." For a second, I thought she might reach across the table. Instead, she brushed a crumb from the corner of my sleeve. A small, practical gesture, but it felt like a hand pressed to the inside of my chest. The air changed. Not heavier, not lighter, just aware. She withdrew her hand and stood, collecting the cups. I should get back downstairs. I lingered, pretending to check my phone. "Mara." She looked over her shoulder. "Thanks. For the tea." Her answer came softly, almost to herself. "Any time." When I left, her reflection stayed faintly in the window glass, like the room hadn't decided to let me go yet. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I started avoiding the kitchen for a few days after that morning. Told myself it was about work, late shifts, sleep. It wasn't. It was the way her eyes had stayed on me. Calm, but searching, like she'd seen something I wasn't ready to admit. Still, she found ways to appear. Sometimes a knock at my door, the mail's mixed up again. Sometimes a voice from the hallway. "Do you still like jasmine tea?" Little things. Ordinary things. But her timing was never random. That Thursday, I came home early. The stairwell was dim, a single bulb flickering overhead. I heard her humming again, the same low tune. She was standing by the window on the landing, watering the small plant that never seemed to grow. "You're back early," she said without turning. "Printer jammed. Boss sent everyone home." "Lucky." "Not really," I said. "Means less pay." She looked over her shoulder, smiled. Small, sympathetic. "Then maybe you should ask your landlady for a discount." Would she say yes? She might, if you asked nicely. Her tone was teasing, but her eyes weren't. They held too much stillness, that quiet, charged kind that makes you forget what to do with your hands. I looked down, fumbled with my keys. "You, want me to fix that light later?" "It's flickering." "If you want," she said. "But not tonight. You look tired." I almost told her she didn't. That she looked exactly the same every day, steady, self-contained, impossible to read. But the words stayed in my throat. Later that evening, I was halfway through reheating noodles when someone knocked again. "Mara." Her voice came muffled. "Sorry, your rent. I forgot to write the receipt." She stood in the doorway, wearing a gray cardigan over her pajamas. Her hair was loose, not the usual bun. I remember that detail more than I should. She glanced at my cluttered table, at the half-eaten dinner. "You always eat alone?" "Yeah. Easier that way." Something flickered across her face. Maybe pity, maybe recognition. She stepped inside before I could stop her. "I used to hate eating alone too," she said. "Now I tell myself it's freedom." She leaned against the counter, close enough for me to smell soap and rain. The air between us thinned. I tried to joke. "Guess that's one kind of rent I haven't paid yet." Her eyes lifted to mine, startled, maybe hurt. Then something else, curiosity. "Mara, I didn't mean," she shook her head. "No, I know." Her voice was low. "It's fine. You just remind me of when things still felt possible." We stood there, both unsure which of us had crossed a line that wasn't visible but suddenly very real. The silence stretched. She reached up to fix the strap of her cardigan. Her hand brushed my chest, light as air. Neither of us moved. Then the door opened. The neighbor from 2B, holding a stack of mail. "Sorry, didn't know anyone was here." Mara stepped back fast. It's fine. Just dropping something off. After she left, the room smelled faintly of her perfume, orange peel, and dust. I didn't eat the rest of my noodles. Rain had been falling since morning, soft, constant. The kind that makes everything smell cleaner but heavier, too. The shop across the street had closed early, lights flickering out one by one. I stood by the window, listening to the building settle, pipes sighing, wind pressing against the glass. A knock. Two short, one long. Her rhythm. When I opened the door, Mara was holding an umbrella, her hair damp around her face. "Power's out on the first floor," she said. "You have a flashlight?" I handed her mine. "You okay?" "Fine," she said. Then, after a pause, "I didn't want to sit in the dark alone." She smiled when she said it, but it didn't reach her eyes. We ended up sitting on the stairwell between our floors, the narrow one with the window that never quite closed. The rain tapped steadily against the glass. I angled the flashlight toward the wall. It painted her face in warm gold. "You ever get tired of starting over?" she asked quietly. I thought about it. "I don't know if I've even started yet." That made her laugh, just once. Then silence again. The kind that settles, not awkward, but close. She was the first to break it. "My ex called last week." "Oh." "He wanted to talk about the apartment. Said he might move back to the city." She ran her thumb along the edge of the flashlight. "Isn't that funny? The way people come back just when you've stopped waiting for them." "Did you want him to?" She hesitated. "Part of me did. The smaller part." Her voice thinned on the last words. I looked at her, the tired posture, the half-smile she wore like armor. I wanted to say something, anything that wouldn't sound like pity. Instead, I said, "He's an idiot." That made her look up. "You don't even know him." "I don't have to." Her eyes held mine, steady, questioning. Then softer. "Careful," she said, almost whispering. "You're too young to sound that certain." "I'm not sure about much," I said. "Except that he shouldn't get another chance to hurt you." The silence after that wasn't peaceful. It was charged, fragile. Mara shifted, knees brushing mine. She didn't move away. "You don't understand," she said. "This, whatever this is, it isn't supposed to happen." "I know." Her gaze flicked to my mouth, then away. "You make it hard to remember that." Something inside me tightened. Not lust, not exactly. Just the ache of wanting to be known. She looked down, exhaled, and whispered, "You should find someone your own age. Someone who doesn't already know how things end." "I didn't come here for an ending," I said. Her breath caught, just once. The rain filled the silence between us. Then, quietly, she asked, "Then what did you come here for?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because if I said it out loud, there'd be no way back. And maybe that's what scared me, that she already knew. After that night on the stairs, something shifted. Not outwardly. The rent got paid. The lights were fixed. The same kettle whistled every morning. But underneath, the rhythm faltered. She stopped humming. Days passed without her knocking. When we crossed paths, her smiles were smaller, rehearsed. She asked about bills instead of sleep, about leaks instead of time. And I didn't ask why. The few times I tried to catch her eye, she'd look away just before I managed. Once, I heard her voice from the hallway. Low, careful. She was on the phone. A man's voice, faint but familiar, answering. "Of course," she said softly. "He's just a tenant." Just a tenant. The words stuck in me, sharp and oddly cold. That evening, I found a package outside her door, addressed to E. Calder, a name I hadn't heard before. When I asked the neighbor, she said, "Oh, her daughter. University in another city. Visits sometimes." Daughter. I don't know why it hit me the way it did. Maybe because I suddenly saw the whole story from another angle. Her care, her restraint, her pauses. It wasn't just guilt. It was life. Lived, heavy, and already full. I wanted to text her. I even typed, "Do you need help downstairs?" Then deleted it. Typed again, "You've been quiet." Deleted that too. Eventually, I just left my phone on the counter and stared at the blinking cursor in the empty message box, like maybe the screen would finish the sentence for me. The next morning, The building smelled of toast again. For a second, it felt normal, like the silence between us had been temporary, like a breath being held. But when I went downstairs, the for rent sign was taped to the window. She was there, adjusting it, fingers trembling slightly. Someone moving out? I asked, pretending I didn't already know. She didn't look at me. You are. The words landed softly, but they were final. I found another tenant, she said. Someone who needs the room sooner than later. You'll have a few days to pack. I tried to find her eyes. Is this about what happened? Her hands froze on the tape. Nothing happened. And just like that, the space between us turned solid. A wall, not a pause. I just think you should go live a little, she said quietly, before you start mistaking kindness for something else. I nodded, though my chest ached. You think that's what this was? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I think we both forgot where the floor was. There was nothing left to say after that. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, half-packed box beside me. My phone glowed faintly in the dark, the unsent message still there. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. By then, the boxes were gone. My key was on the counter, and the room upstairs echoed when I walked across it. I'd been living at a friend's place, half unpacked, half pretending I'd moved on. But small things have a way of pulling you back. An unpaid receipt, a forgotten charger, a voice that still lives in your head. That's what brought me to her door again. Not to fix anything, just to return a flashlight. She opened it on the second knock. The same cardigan, the same faint smell of tea. Her expression didn't change, only her posture softened, just a little. You left this, I said, holding it out. She looked at the flashlight like it was something fragile. I thought you'd keep it. I tried. We stood there, the hallway between us tighter than ever. The air hummed with everything unsaid. You look tired, she said. So do you. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. Guess that makes us even. I wanted to tell her I hadn't been sleeping. That every night, I'd catch myself waiting for her footsteps out of habit. That it wasn't about the room or the rent. But saying it out loud would turn it into something we couldn't walk away from. Still, she stepped back. You can come in for a minute. The kitchen was the same. Kettle on the stove, window half open. Rain again, faint and rhythmic against the sill. She poured 2 cups of tea without asking. I noticed her hands tremble slightly. I didn't mean to push you out, she said after a long silence. It just felt like I was losing track of what I could be to you. I never asked you to be anything, I said quietly. I know. That's what made it harder. She leaned against the counter, looking at me with tired honesty. You remind me of when I still believed I could start over. And that scared me. Because people like me don't start over. We just learn to sit quietly with what's left. I swallowed, the words rough in my throat. You could have told me that. I'm telling you now. Something in her voice cracked. Not loudly, but enough. I nodded. For what it's worth. I didn't stay because I was confused. I stayed because it finally felt like someone noticed I was here. Her eyes met mine, wet and steady. I noticed. Maybe too much. We both laughed softly at nothing. Just the absurdity of how long it had taken to say something so simple. Then she reached for my hand. Just once, brief, warm. You'll be fine, she whispered. You're still at the beginning. I wanted to tell her she wasn't at the end either. But the words stayed where they were. She let go first. Okay. I nodded. Okay. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, the kettle clicked off. It felt like closure, but gentle, the kind you only get when 2 people finally stop pretending they don't understand each other. Spring came quietly that year. The kind of mild, forgiving season that doesn't announce itself, just replaces rain with light and lets things grow where they can. I moved back into the building a few months later. Not the same room. A smaller one on the ground floor. Mara pretended it was coincidence. The tenant left suddenly, she'd said. But we both knew she'd left the door open on purpose. The place looked different now. She'd repainted the hallway, replaced the flickering light, filled the windowsills with little pots of herbs. Basil, rosemary, mint. Things that made the air smell like new beginnings. I still worked nights, but I started getting up early. By 8:47 a.m., I'd usually hear her kettle click on. The same sound as before, but softer now. Sometimes she'd wave from her window. Sometimes she'd just leave a mug by my door. No notes. No explanations. One morning, I brought her coffee instead. Black, the way she always took it. She was sitting by the window, sunlight catching in her hair. "Didn't think you were up this early," she said. "Trying to be," I answered. She smiled. "You'll ruin my reputation if you start being reliable." "I'll risk it." The quiet between us had changed. It wasn't waiting for anything anymore. Not heavy, not fragile. Just shared. We didn't talk about the night on the stairs, or the weeks apart, or the almosts. Life had already folded those moments into the background, like old paint under new layers. She poured the coffee into 2 mugs. "Still can't get used to drinking it without sugar," she said. "You don't have to," I said. "You just keep pretending you like it that way." Her laugh was soft, genuine, the kind that carried warmth instead of apology. She handed me a mug, fingers brushing mine. Not hesitant this time, just natural. We started taking short walks in the evenings, after she closed up. Nothing dramatic, just loops around the block, sometimes ending on the park bench behind the building. She'd talk about her plants, her daughter, the tenants who came and went. I'd tell her about the shop, the customers, the small things that made up my days. We didn't name what we had. We didn't need to. One night, as we sat under the soft streetlight, she leaned her head lightly against my shoulder. "Strange, isn't it?" she murmured. "How quiet things can be, even when they finally make sense." I nodded. "Maybe that's the point." She smiled. That slow, unguarded smile that only ever appeared when she forgot to hold her breath. The kettle would click off in a few hours. Morning would come again. But for now, it felt enough. Not perfect, not permanent, just true. Sometimes, when she hums without realizing it, I still remember that first night. The box too heavy, the hallway too narrow, the space where everything began. And I think, maybe this is what it means to finally be seen and stay seen.